Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Quality Talks podcast. Today's episode is episode 13, believe it or not. I can't
Oh, unlucky
believe,
for some.
well, hopefully we can spin the narrative on that one and turn 13 into our lucky number. Maybe see what traction we can get with this episode, and hopefully we can do good things with it. So the title of this episode is The Perfect Pair. Now you may ask, what does the title mean? So the idea behind The Perfect Pair is it's about interviews and the relationship between businesses and employees, and that whole process of finding unity between um, an employer and an employee. And it seems pretty prevalent at the minute that the tech industry has been going through a little bit of a shake-up in the last year to 16 months, and we seem to be speaking to more and more people and finding out about their journeys, and that there is seemingly more people on the job market looking for their next role. So what we wanted to do is kind of cover this topic about that relationship as you go through, and how best to sell yourself in an interview, but also look at both sides of the spectrum as well, and see if there's any tips and advice that we can give. But also we have reached out to our community that we've built already, and we've asked for people's input into this episode. So we'll be able to walk you through some of the comments, give our thoughts as well, and maybe off the back of that, there may be some more food for thought that we can pass back out to the community and get your input onto as well. Um, as as me and Stu, just before this episode, we were talking, we were saying how important this discussion could be and how great of a topic it is to try and cover in one episode. And what we are going to do is see how we get on. We want to try and cover as much information as possible in the time that we've got. But if we feel like there is certainly more topics to talk about, or if there's particular topics we want to dive into, we might turn this episode into like a mini series and see how we can dive into those topics that might mean the most to you as the listener, just so that people can extract as much value as possible and try and use that in obviously the challenging markets that we've got today, just to try and improve interaction and people's overall experience on both sides of either being interviewed or being the one actually conducting the interviews as well. So that's in short what we're going to go over today. Like I say, we'll see how we go, but before we get into that, I think it's important for us just to have a little bit of a recap and tell you what's been going on with us. Obviously, you see us for an episode, but there is a lot more that goes on behind the scenes, and sometimes it's nice just to keep us up to date as listeners and just see what we've been up to. So, Stu, do you want to kick us off in terms of how the community's grown?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's looking at the numbers from the community side of things. I don't think we've touched on this for a few episodes actually. So, and it's quite impressive how much it's grown. Today being Sunday. Okay, yes, people, we record for you on a Sunday evening. You know, we hit 800 followers on LinkedIn, which is like a little bit of a moment, I think, right? 800 followers. I think we're at 803 now, maybe. So that's incredible, right? We're pushing towards 1,000 followers on our LinkedIn page, and that's really, really great. On YouTube, I think we're at around about 215, and Spotify's doing a little bit of a sneaky uplift recently. We're almost at 100 followers on Spotify. We've gone way over 1,000 all-time listens on Spotify as well. So yeah, I think things are looking really, really, really good. We launched our Instagram page a couple of weeks ago. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, we're on Instagram now as well. It's the_quality_talks. No, it's not. It's do you know what? I don't just go just search it. I can't even remember because Instagram messed me about. It wouldn't allow me to have Quality Talks podcast as one thing. So I
We'll
had to put
drop it in the
underscores in.
comments.
We'll drop it in the comments. Yeah, exactly. I
I
can't even
really
remember
want to
what
be
it
able to do that way, like you get people in the point up to the corner of the screen, but I don't know if we've quite figured that out yet, but you never know,
Well,
we'll
yeah,
try.
and also we can't do any of that stuff until we get about 1,000 followers, really. So because we can do everything. So yeah, but yeah, we'll drop everything into the notes, the show notes. So yeah, follow us on Instagram as well. Obviously, we've got the website. That's we've not really been putting too much on the website, but it will start gathering some speed and momentum very very soon. There are some things going on there. So we've recently updated the events page. So we've got some news on some events, Chris, haven't we? That are coming up that we're going to be either pairing up at or doing individually. So we want to
Yeah,
mention some of
absolutely. I
that.
mean, the next one up and coming where uh, me and Stu's actually going to be together in person. So if you do want to come along and see us and meet us, then get yourself a ticket. But we will be at the National Software Testing Conference in London this year. And on day two, we will be actually taking on the opening keynote slot. So look out for us if you're already going. Drop a message in the comments as well. Let us know. We'll look out for you, and we can obviously have a chat when we're there. But it'll be great to see as many new and familiar faces as possible there as well. So bit of a shout out to that. And 2 years ago, it will be since me and Stu stood on that stage.
Is it 2 years? Is it two
Yeah,
years? Oh,
yeah.
and we don't look
So
any older.
no, so it'll be nice to again share that stage alongside you, Stu. So that's new. That's coming on. Stu, I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder here, so
Just so yeah, I mean, just to complete the loop on that first announcement, Chris. We're going to be we're the topic we're going to be talking about is all around self care and leadership. So obviously we had the episode a couple of episodes back, but the talk is actually the power of self care and leadership. So yeah, we're going to be taking to the stage and obviously talking about that really really important topic. So yeah, I really can't wait for that. Yeah, so anybody going to Test Bash? Put your hands up. Can't see you. Can't see you, but I can't hear you. But I'm sure there's plenty of people out there going to Test Bash in October, and hopefully you'll have seen that all the speakers and workshop hosts been announced. And I will be delivering a 99-minute workshop alongside the ever gorgeous David Norshaw. Gorgeous Dave, we like to call him. So by all means, go and look at Gorgeous Dave's LinkedIn profile. You will not be disappointed. And I get extreme beard envy whenever I'm either on a call with him or in the same room as him. But yeah, me and David are going to be doing a workshop on adaptable leadership and quality coaching. So yeah, that's going to be really cool. Really looking forward to that. And yeah, if you're going to be there, make sure you come along because I want to fill the room. 80 people we can get in the room apparently, and I want them to queue out the door. That's what I want. So yeah, that's going to be cool. Looking forward to that.
yeah, awesome. What we'll do as well, just to put David in the spotlight a bit, we're going to drop his LinkedIn tag so you can go and check. And you never know, he might have 803 people have looked at his profile, so it might freak him out a little bit, but we'll put him out there. And another kind of announcement as well that I wanted to cover off. So last Thursday, I had the opportunity to attend Exalto's recruitment leadership roundtable in Leeds. So I was asked up by Adrian and the guys to see if I would like to come along and be part of the roundtable discussion, which was on I thought, a really great topic. So it was about multi-generational teams and some of the challenges that we might face, having multi-generations in the workforce, but then also some of the key learnings and stuff as well that we can leverage from each generation as well. And it turned out to be a really good discussion. And it was a chance to network with some really great leaders in the industry. It was a very thought-provoking session, and I've got some great takeaways from that. So again, thanks again for the invite. It was much appreciated, and look forward to the next one. And then,
and sorry, Chris, just on that, I think you said that maybe we'll do a future episode around that as well. Hopefully maybe get some peeps on from that. So yeah, that'd be cool, because I'd really like to delve into that with you a bit more.
Yeah, because it was such an important topic, and I think it's not one that's discussed too often. It's definitely overlooked, but when you really open up in that conversation, there's so much to talk about, and there's so many different perspectives as well. So it'd be great if maybe there's a couple of people who were at that roundtable event would come on and share some of their insights and experiences as well, and hopefully then people can take away something from the podcast on that, in the same way I did from that discussion as well, because like I say, it's a great one to cover, So like I say, thanks again for that. And you may have already seen that Gary Shannon has announced that we're in planning for the next Ministry of Testing London meetup. The last one was, again, a massive success, so credit to everybody who supported the event and helped with the planning, the sponsorship of the event, and of course everybody who attended and the speakers as well. It's great to see so much positivity on LinkedIn around that event, and it really is gaining some great traction. So we're looking to host the next one at Dunelm. It's an opportunity, if you've never met me before, come get your ticket, come along, say hi. I believe I'll be speaking. I'm still to confirm it yet. We don't know what about, but as you know, with this podcast, I can ramble on a little bit, and so yeah, we'll see what that lineup looks like, as well as other speakers and stuff. But we'll post more details on that. Obviously, Gary will share that as we come closer to the event. So that's exciting. And I don't think there's anything else from my side. What about you, Stu?
Yeah, just a couple more bits really. I mean, but I just want to give a massive shout out to Gary, because he's doing an amazing job with that London meetup. So let's just give Gary a big round of applause, because he's really doing a great job. So kudos to you, Gary. And if you do have the opportunity to get to one of the London meetups, I think they're going to be monthly now. Then definitely try to. The tickets go very quickly, but it's definitely worth it, even putting yourself on the waiting list, because obviously people always do drop out. So I was there on Thursday this week, and had a really great time. It's great to see so many people, and even meet some of the people that are part of our community as well. So Eamon, I'm going to mention Eamon. Shout out to Eamon, getting up there and doing his first ever 99-second talk. Smashed it.
Absolutely nailed it, didn't he?
Absolutely nailed it, and even wished his mum a happy birthday as well. And I thought that was just killer. So it was really, really great. So just a couple of other things. So we are, as we've talked about, we're trying to, or we want to this year, actually launch our own events, meetups. And we're currently in talks to make that happen. So watch this space. That's all I'm going to say at the moment. Watch this space. We're aiming north of the country, as you may have seen from our post, if you've read the post. But it's looking very promising that we might be able to land a venue and a sponsor very, very soon. So it may all happen sooner than we actually thought. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Eyes and ears peeled for that. But that's going to be a meetup like no other. Let's put it that way. It's going to be a live podcast recording with audience participation. You name it, we go big. We're on the very first episode, right? We say we go big or go home. You know how it rolls. So we're not going to mess about. And just finally, I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody. Those that know me and those that obviously follow me will have known that I've been going through some health stuff recently, and it's been a bit of a struggle. Still, things are still going on and on. But I just want to say a massive thank you to people for reaching out, checking in, just giving their encouragement and support and stuff like that. I can't say how much it makes a difference, right? And whether that's verbally, whether it's just a message on LinkedIn or people DMing me directly, it really, really helps. And I always try and bring a positive attitude and a smile. And sometimes it can be hard. So I really, really do appreciate it. But that's enough about that. Let's get into the episode. Oh, look, I just like to do this. I can do it. Look at that. Oh, sorry. Anybody that's listening, we're making stupid little heart shapes with our hands, and mine's terrible. It looks like I'm looking through binoculars. Look. Oh. Yes, let's get into the episode. So, the perfect pair. So, Chris, you did a really good intro to what this is all about. Before we get into stuff, though, I want us to play a little game because we haven't played a game for a while, have we? Let's just play a little game with the perfect pair and see if we're see if we're as tuned in as we think we are. When we're really good friends, we like to think we're tuned in. This could separate our friendship, I think, if we get this wrong, right? So we're going to play a game of the perfect pair. You can play at home if you want to. But, right, are you ready? You know the rules because we spoke about it before, right? Okay.
Well, if I don't, we're going to find out.
We are. So I'm going to start with an easy one.
1, 2,
I'm going to
3.
start with what will potentially be an easy one. Salt and...
Pepper.
Cool. Yeah, okay. I'll agree with that, yeah.
Red and
yellow. I don't know. Red and what?
Well, it was red and black, like the sweets. You know, I'm always hungry, Stu, and I've got
Vegas and
yeah.
Oh, I failed. I was thinking of red lorry, yellow lorry. Have you ever heard of that?
Tongue twister.
Of course there you go. That's where my head went. Clearly, so
just because I'm northern, Stu, doesn't mean we don't have the same rhymes.
Just with a different twang to them. So let me think then. Sausage and
chips.
See, I would probably go mash.
Oh,
I might have to go mash.
This is where we're going to completely disagree. It's you.
Mate, I'm not sure. I can be friends.
Southerners and Midlanders.
Still have gravy though.
Mashed potato. I mean, chips are just so much better, right?
Yeah, I have to admit I do like sausage and chips, but my go-to, my natural instinct there is to go mash. I think that's what I'm thinking. Right, give me one more.
Just on that, if we have anybody north of Newcastle, obviously, if you don't know, I'm from Newcastle. You can probably tell by my Geordie accent. But if we have anybody north of Newcastle, let us know what your choice is, because I want to know if it's based off region, this preference.
And do you have gravy on your chips? Because I'll have gravy on my chips. I'll have curry sauce on my chips. I won't have ketchup on my chips though.
What about bread and
butter?
Yeah, not mayonnaise. Thankfully, something we agree on. There's a few strange people out there who would choose mayonnaise over butter. Don't know why. Maybe somebody can explain in the comments if you're one of those people.
Brilliant.
What's the benefits of mayonnaise over butter in your sandwich?
Don't know. But that's a little bit of fun, right? Let's get to the serious stuff. So, interviews.
Yeah.
Interviews. We've all had them. We've all done them. We've all had different experiences with them. And the reason why we've named the episode Perfect Pair is because it is a two-way thing, right? An interview is a two-way street. It shouldn't just be, the all about the hiring manager, and it shouldn't be all about the candidate. It's about finding that perfect match. And I think there's so much we could, as we said, there's so much we can talk about in this episode. But I'm keen to sort of just start with, talking about our own experiences of interviews and the interview process from both sides of the table. I mean, I don't know how many interviews I've done, right, over the years. I could count how many interviews I had, but how many I've actually conducted, you're looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, right, over the span of my 27-year career, I think. So, Chris, I'm going to come to you initially and just sort of talk about, in your sort of mind, what's an interview really for?
It's, well, I think it's two ways, and the interview from a business perspective is to find somebody who can potentially fulfill the role requirements that you need to run a successful business based off the criteria you're looking for that particular role. But also, you have to look at that individual's what they bring to the table from their own unique perspective, and how does that person's qualities align with your business values, and is also that person going to bring the right dynamic to your teams and ultimately help you foster the right environments within your organization. But then also there is the other side of it where, and I think this is, we sometimes get caught up in things, and I'll dip into it in a little bit just about that. But from the if you're looking to join a company and you're going through that interview process as well, there is the other side of it where you're looking at the business. Is that right for you culturally? Do you feel like you would be a right fit? Do they support you with meaningful work? Can you build connection to the product that you're going to be working on? Does it provide the right opportunities? There is obviously the benefits, like that could be like just some of the benefits that the company offers, but also it could be some of the like long-term benefits like career progression and stuff. Is that supported within the organization? What does it look like? What's the career pathways? Things like that. So it really is like a 50-50 relationship. And what I was going to mention just then, I stopped myself, was that bit's always overlooked. And I think as we go through the like ups and downs of the industry, and especially at the minute, you see there's a lot of more people looking for work and stuff. Companies sometimes forget that because they've got so much choice, because it's a really large talent pool to pick from, and sometimes we can forget that it's not just about us selecting from the people who are applying, but it's also we have to sell ourselves equally as well. So I think that's just something that we've got to be mindful of. But yeah, like from an interview perspective, that's kind of my thoughts. Like it is that 50-50 relationship, and it is about like being able to put your best foot forward and sell yourself and make sure that you are connected and perfectly paired together on the things that matter most to you as a business or as an individual. What about yourself, Stu?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to disagree on any of that. I think how I kind of view interviews and is, we often talk about the candidate and how they need to sell themselves, right? But it's the same for the company that is recruiting. They also need to be selling themselves. and at no point should a candidate feel as though they cannot interview the recruitment, the company that is recruiting, right? And that's why an interview should be two ways. Now, often, and if you are interviewing, you should always allow time or always allow the open forum for somebody to ask questions throughout an interview, right? We often go, oh, there'll be time at the end for questions. How often do we eat into that time and go, oh, no, you've got 3 minutes. Have you got any questions? That's not a good experience. I'm sorry. It needs to be an open dialogue so that the person being interviewed can ask questions at any point so that they feel like, they have that opportunity and, they can gather as much information about the company and the people that are interviewing them as the other way around, right? So for me, an interview it takes two people or more, right, to have a really open and free flowing conversation and allow people to ask those questions freely, with comfort and safety, right? Now we know from experience that often doesn't happen. Now we've done a load of interviews together, Chris, where that's exactly the format that we've done, right? We've gone in there, been very open at the start, and made it very clear. If you have any questions at any point, please do ask them. There will obviously be time at the end, but please do ask them. I'd rather have this be a conversation than a fire an answer. So for me, I think that's really obviously there in terms of gathering information about both parties. Are we the right fit for each other? If you're coming at it from a candidate perspective, is, like you say, is this the right company? Are they going to support my development? Culturally, do they have the same values as I have? And same sort of thing from the other side. Can the candidate do the things that we require them to do for the particular job? If not, can we train them? Are they adaptable? Are they, no one person will ever have every single skill that you need or the level of experience you need and stuff like that. And I think you've got to go into these things with an open mind and be able to kind of look at it from different lenses throughout the interview process, to enable you to kind of find that perfect pairing, right? And as I say, it needs to be a two-way thing. So yeah, probably a lot more we could go into just in to open it up there. But what for you, Chris, in your experience, and it might be you've had experiences of both of these, and feel free to share. I'll happily share some of mine. But what does a good interview look like to you? And versus, well, probably it's just the opposite to a good one, right? What does a bad one look like? But what have you been your experiences of a good interview? And obviously, I interviewed you once, right? So by all means, you don't have to, use me as an example, but it's fine if you want to. No, I'm joking.
I mean, for me, when you ask the question, like, what is a good interview? I think it's really hard to outline specific requirements or steps that, like, a cookie cutter for a good interview. I don't think that's necessarily possible. No. I think there is certain considerations that we need to make when going through an interview process, but it's going to be different for each company. Individuals are going to have different requirements because ultimately what good looks like is a feeling. So from an interviewer perspective and somebody who is being interviewed, it's the feeling that they take away after the interview that will determine whether that was a good interview or not. And I think that's why it's really important to have feedback on your interview process and invite candidates to come forward, whether they were successful or unsuccessful, and play into that interview experience and just let you know how they felt emotionally through it. It's a very triggering time doing an interview.
Yeah.
Some people are just really blessed and they can just go through it, no nerves at all. That's certainly not me. And it can be a lot of sleepless nights in the build up. It is an emotional roller coaster, and I think we've just got to have a bit of a appreciation for that. And I think you were touching on it there before, and I just wanted to say something on that. Is like the interview, as we go through the interview process as well, you mentioned about open communication. And I think that's one of the considerations we need to have to form a good interview. Because if we don't have open communication and it is just quick fire, very transactional, that doesn't allow us to be our free and best self in the interview and as interviewers as well. So open dialogue with each other, the ability to ask questions whenever needed, is a good step forward for that. And as you're in the interview environment as well on both sides, because it is a stressful environment, your brain is supercharged with emotions and you don't always think clearly and the same. How many people go through an interview, you're being asked a question, but you're thinking about answers to that question and your last question you've just been asked and what they could ask next. So then when you want to ask a question yourself, if you've got to wait till the end, chances are you're not going to remember that. I know exactly. I don't. Yeah. You might have a little bit of a brain fart and you can't remember things.
We've all seen brain farts, Chris. Come on.
Well, we've all seen me do that plenty enough. But it's just a natural thing that happens, and it's a bit like that fight or flight emotion. So I think we need to appreciate that we are human beings going through this process, and we truly want to see the best out of each other. And to do that, we just have to have the respect that, yes, it might be for 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on what your interview style is, but just use that time wisely and give each other the respect and opportunity to talk more about ourselves than just those scripted questions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And looking at, I always being on the side of the table where you are interviewing candidates for a role, I want them to have the best possible experience, right? I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to be themselves. And as the person doing the interview, or the people doing the interview, depending on how many people you have, that's on us to make sure that happens, right? And only then can that person really be themselves. And I love those interviews where it almost becomes like just a conversation, and you come away from that interview and you've learned so much about that person, right? It may be that they're not fit, they don't fit the profile that you need for the role. That's okay, that's fine. But you've learned so much more about that person, of who they actually are. Okay. And that helps then give you to be able to give constructive feedback to them as well, because you've tapped into them and you understand them a little bit more, and therefore you can provide them with feedback that can help them with their development, which is what I've always tried and wanted to do when coming away from that. And I want them to go away and having really enjoyed the experience. Again, regardless of whether they're successful or not, just coming away from an interview and thinking, I really enjoyed that. I felt like I could be myself. I felt relaxed, or as relaxed as I could be.
Mm-hmm.
And I've given myself the best opportunity to showcase who I am and what I can do. And you don't get that with these transactional they're not even conversations. They're just, all right, I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay, here's a question, answer. Here's another question. And they don't even flow. They don't even connect to what... It's like you're not even listening to actually what the person said. You're just waiting for the answer, making some notes, crack on to the next question. And those questions don't even connect.
Yeah.
That for me is not a great experience for an interview. So yeah, I think that just being able to make it the best possible, like you say, feeling, right?
Yeah, definitely.
For both parties, and yeah, come away and go, do you know what, I really enjoyed that. And I love nothing more than saying at the end of an interview, I've really enjoyed meeting you. I've really enjoyed getting to know you better, and look, sometimes you can create that environment, but you still struggle with that connection and that dynamic and stuff. And that happens, right? Some people will still struggle. But as the person doing the interview, you are the person or the people that have to create the environment to enable people to be able to showcase themselves to the best of their ability in the time that they have. Right? It's on you. It's on us. All right. You can't make these things transactional because that isn't fair on those people. Right? You can't say, oh, they didn't. No, you've got to create the environment for them.
Yeah, definitely. Like it goes back to emotions, right, and just the appreciation for what people are going through in that moment, and just even just like in the sometimes you'll join a call a couple of minutes beforehand, have just a little open conversation with the candidate, crack a few
Yeah.
jokes, just try and lighten the mood and relax that person into the conversation and set the tone for the interview, that it is going to be relaxed and conversational. And like point before about like interviews where it is very transactional, just a bit of advice: if you feel like in your organization you do have a very transactional interview process, you can still ask those questions, just learn to ask them differently. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be reading them off a piece of paper and jotting down the
Exactly.
notes. You can actually have somebody sit in the interview and capture some thoughts and what the person said, and you can talk about it afterwards if you want. There's different ways and means to get the information and extract that out of the conversation. But yeah, you've got to just practice more as well. Like, don't feel afraid as a leadership group to say, hey, we've got these questions, let's just have a little bit of a role play type session as a leadership group, so we can practice our interview style to make these questions come up in a more organic way through our communication. So I definitely encourage people to do that, because I mean, it's not helpful on anyone doing quick fire questions. It's not helpful on yourself. You're not even listening to what the person's saying because you're waiting for it that conversation to finish so you can then step in and ask your question. Shouldn't be like that, and like through practice of your craft as well, you become more comfortable and relaxed as an interviewer, and that then comes through a lot in the interview, and definitely helps to set that right environment, because you're leading by example. If you're relaxed, then the person being interviewed will be as well, because they don't feel your tension or awkwardness.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we talk, obviously in the coaching world, we talk about active listening. There's no better time to be actively listening than in an interview,
Yeah,
because you're not only listening to what the person's saying, you need to listen to how they're saying it, pick up on their emotions, and then you can use that to then feed and intertwine your next set of questions into the conversation, rather than it being, right, I've stopped you now, I'm going to talk about something different. I've stopped you now and I'm going to talk about... Just think a little bit more about it, like you say, and just almost like just build it into the conversation. It's not hard. It's really not hard. And with practice, anybody can do it. And as I say, we've done plenty of interviews together, right, Chris? And
Yeah.
we'll go into the interview knowing the sort of things we want to get out of it, but we do it in a way, or we've done it in a way that drives a conversation and enables the person to sort of just showcase themselves and be free rather than transactional bang 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 bang. But I appreciate that there is different styles of interviews. I appreciate not everybody's comfortable doing them, let alone being in them, right? But it's people. It's hard for the person doing the interview as much as it is for the person that's being interviewed, and we have to remember that, right? Everything is practice. And I've been doing some mentoring with somebody recently, to help them prepare for interviews, and so we've been doing some role play, right? So and this person is just so nervous when it comes to interviews. So literally in the role play, I am like properly trying to settle them in and just use the sort of techniques that I would previously use. But then I'm also very mindful that how we're role playing and how I'm trying to mentor this person through those examples may not be what they get when it comes to the actual interview. So, we've had to sort of talk about that a little bit as well, and just sort of like, this is how we've discussed it, but this could be flipped. It could be different. So just be mindful, just take a moment, and think about that. So yeah, I think both ways. If you're going to do interviews, practice, do some role play. If you're waiting for an interview for a role, try again. If you've got a mentor, great. Maybe you can do some role play. If not, just reach out to somebody. I'm sure that people will help. It really does kind of just, get you feeling better about things. But I want to jump into the different styles and different formats of interviews now, because we touched on a couple there, a very transactional, back and forth, and versus the more conversational. What are your thoughts on? I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit
here. Go on.
What are your thoughts on technical interviews?
There's a time and a place. I think when you're recruiting for more mid or senior lead type roles that have a technical part of that roles and responsibilities, then I think it is important to have something there that exercises that technical aspect, because they don't necessarily have to get it right, but it's how they approach a particular problem. Their mindset, their general demeanor, their approach, their ability to communicate a technical problem in a way that is understandable, that engages other people in the conversation, to ultimately potentially help solve a problem. You learn quite a bit about that person's just general communication styles and how they conduct themselves, and they're the types of things that we want to see within the team. So it's almost like a technical interview isn't really about getting the answer. It's almost, you put the technical side in there, but it's not actually about the technical aspect. It's almost a bit like a pressured situation to see how somebody deals with that. But I think, to my point as well, doing that for junior roles, I think you've got to be very careful. You can set technical tasks, but I wouldn't want to put somebody in a coding, like one-to-one exercise, something like that. More of a like higher level systems thinking, something like that, or problem solving, like the old
Yeah.
exercise, like how do you test a chair? And it's just an image of a chair, and it's just about uncovering that conversation. That's a
Mm.
technical assessment as well, because I think there is not much you gain from sitting down with somebody who is more junior in their experience and putting them through a technical test, because the nature of their role is they're on that journey and that they're at the initial stages. So it's more about just how do they approach these problems that they're ultimately going to face, probably more than anybody else, but that's going to
Yeah.
give you a better picture of how they overcome that kind of challenges and adversities within
Mm.
their career journey, so
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a time and place. I'm not massively against them. I'm not massively for them. I just think it's a tool that we'll use, and it just really is dependent on the role and the experience that you're looking for from that particular role. What about yourself?
Yeah. I like you say, there's a time and a place. I think the order in which, if you've got a multi-stage interview, the order in which you apply the technical aspect is really important, because often, and it might be the very first sort of part to an interview. It's like they got to pass a coding challenge or something like that, and if they don't pass that coding challenge, then they don't even get, you don't even know who's behind that screen,
Yeah.
right? So for me, it's kind of like, just because, like you say, they haven't passed the coding challenge doesn't mean that they aren't the right person for the role, because they may have all the aptitude and etc etc etc. So for me, it's more about where do you position these types of interviews, right, or tasks or tests or whatever you want to call them. I always want to get in front of a person first, you know, um, and that's really important to me. It's kind of like, if you've got like you have the behavioral competency type interviews, you'll have a job fit type interview. And for me, I think the job fit type interview is probably like, I would be like, well, that's kind of the one I want to be doing first. It's kind of like, that's looking at the bigger picture of the role and getting to
Mm-hmm.
know the person. Okay, if I really like this person, and then they go ahead and do the coding and they maybe aren't as strong as we'd like. Okay, well, I saw a lot in the interview that says to me that they could probably learn this stuff, right? Versus if you do it first and you never get to see that, So I think for me, it's more about where they're positioned, because, like you say, they're often needed for certain types of roles, and I get
Mm-hmm.
it. I'm not against them at all. It's more about how you conduct them, and for me, you can learn so much more about having somebody, interacting with somebody one to one, versus what they did on a screen. That you may not even, that they just did a test and they sent it in, and you know. Um, so yeah, so I think if you've got a mix of different interview formats, you might have a 2-stage, 3-stage interview process, for example. It's about how you order them, make sure that they are in the right order to be able to get the most out of people in the best way.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it's definitely something that's overlooked. Because you want to build connection with that individual,
Mm,
and if they see a familiar face in the second interview, and the second interview is a technical assessment, that's normally the thing that causes a lot of people to feel anxious over.
yeah.
And we may like catastrophize and overthink about the technical assessment coming up and things like that. But if you've already built that connection with those who have previously interviewed you, and there is a familiar face in there, even if the interview panel changes slightly for the second stage, that helps just put somebody at ease a little bit more. And also, they've already gained a little bit of experience about what is the style of interview, like what is the communication style, so they know what to
Mm,
expect. So I definitely think that's a really good point you brought up there, and I hope that's a bit of food for thought for people to look at their own interview process and just think about kind of the emotional impact that certain stages can have in if you switch them around. So obviously we talked a little bit there just on, and we could just keep going on and on and on about all of the different good points, but like obviously that's just from our perspective a little bit of an idea from what we feel good could look like, and just a little bit more about this topic. And like I say, I think look, Stu, because there is so much to talk on, I think this is a case for like a little mini series. Because
absolutely,
it's such an important topic as well. But from your perspective, just on the flip side of it, what does a bad interview look like to you? And have you had any negative experiences, or like something that's really stuck with you after an interview that maybe didn't sit so well on either side of the fence? Putting you on the spot now. You did it to me, mate. So I'm throwing it back at you.
No, do you know what? I've got so many stories. I was just like, I'm trying to pick the right ones for this podcast. So I think being on the I'm being interviewed side, the worst case for me being in an interview is it's just transactional, as I say, right? Because I am so not that person. It's like I want to know who you are on the other side. You're asking me these questions, but I want to tap into you. But you know what? The thing that really like puts me off in an interview more than anything else is when people just don't smile, or they just don't come across like they really want to be there. They're like, I'm doing this because basically I've got to do it, and it's like it doesn't take a moment to smile and just kind of like make that person feel, comfortable. And that for me is like, for knowing what I want to achieve when I'm doing the interview, that's what I want to feel the other way around as well. So when I don't feel that kind of just immediately kind of just puts me off a little bit. So I'll try and, always try and have a bit of a, if they don't initiate it, I would always try and have a conversation, right? Just to get to know them a little bit more, just to see, can I make this person smile or not? No, okay, right. But again, they might be having a bad day. Okay, fine. But sometimes we just have to step past that based on the situation. So that for me is like, if I have an interview and I don't get that vibe, I don't get that kind of like energy or connection with somebody, more so than anything, and it's very transactional, I'll come off of there being a bit like, okay. And I've had those types of interviews.
Yeah.
On the flip side, on my days, where shall I? Yeah, do you know what? I'm going to go in. I'm going to give this example, and I'm going to caveat this. Right, this genuinely happened. I'm not making this up, and I'm not exaggerating it in any way. This genuinely happened,
people.
So I did an interview with somebody, right? And it was really hard to get them to engage and interact. And they were obviously very nervous. So absolutely fine, right? I understand that. Try to relax them in, etc., etc. But every sort of question was very like short answers, very closed, couldn't really build on anything, and it was really hard. It was like a really hard interview to kind of lead on. So I did the thing that I never do. Say to the person, okay, so I'm just gonna let's just talk about your CV. Let's just walk through your CV, because I was struggling to get much out. So I thought by going to the CV, they might feel more comfortable.
Talking points.
Yeah, exactly. So I just pulled something off the CV, and it said expert in behavior driven development. That's all it said. So I was keen to understand that a little bit more. So I asked the question. I said, "Oh, so I see your CV says you're an expert in behavior-driven development. Can you expand on that for me? Because I'm really interested to understand, what your experience is with it, and etc." And there was a moment of kind of like, sort of just silence.
Mm-hmm.
And then the candidate come back, and this was on a Teams call, and the candidate came back and they said, "So I actually don't have much experience with behavior driven development. I was told to put that on my CV because it would look good." At which point, obviously, I kind of very calmly sort of ended the interview and just said, "Look, I don't feel like, this is going to be a good pairing," and stuff like that. Immediately got off the call and phoned the recruiter and had a very nice conversation with the recruiter. But that for me is probably one of the worst interviews I've ever done. And it wasn't the fact that I was struggling to get, it was that now credit, they confessed and they said, they told me the truth. Okay, that was gutsy, to be fair. But the fact that they did that in the first place, because somebody had told them to do that so that they can get their CV,
Yeah.
I felt that was quite sad. And that you shouldn't need to do that, right? And obviously, I'm going to throw it out there and say nobody ever lie on their CV to try and get a foot in the door, because it will trip you up. It can and it will trip you up. And the good interviewers out there will always find a way to tap into, if you're maybe not telling the truth or maybe exaggerating the truth a little bit or whatever it is. But for me, that's like, I'm going to put it out there that was the worst interview, I ever had to do, because of just the nature of it. And it was just like, where do you go from there? And that's why I ended up just having to end it, because it was, yeah. So
I mean, that's
that was an extreme example, but
it's a great tip for anybody out there giving advice to people
yeah,
on their CV, giving them a little bit of feedback, and same to recruiters and stuff as well. Learn a lesson from what Stu just mentioned there, and learn how to support somebody to make the most of what they've got. They don't have to pretend. It's how do they best sell
absolutely not.
themselves with the experience that they have. And you know what? It's okay to not know things as well.
Exactly.
Going back to the technical, the mention about the technical assessment, it's how you approach things. We're all going to face things within our roles that on a daily basis that we don't know. But we learn to overcome that, and it's how you approach that, and it's being comfortable not knowing things as well.
Yeah, just be honest.
Yeah,
Just be honest, because ultimately that's all you want from any individual that you're going to look to employ and bring into your organization. Honesty, trust.
yeah,
So yeah, just think twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, however many times you need to think before, putting something on your CV that you genuinely haven't experienced or don't know anything about, right? Because it will always come back to bite you in some way. And anybody encouraging anybody to do that as well, just don't do that.
yeah,
Right? Just
100%.
don't do it. It's perfectly fine to adapt your CV to pull out the key things that you do have experience in specifically for a role. And maybe you'll leave some other stuff off that might not be as relevant, but then you might drop it back in for another role. Yeah, absolutely do that, because you're really that's a great way to kind of sell what you can bring to that particular role, right? But yeah, don't just put stuff on there because the job role asks for it, therefore I'm going to put it on there. But then I'm just going to flip this a moment. and we're not talking about interviews, but role profiles are being advertised and stuff like that. This is a whole different topic, and I want us to get into this separately, Chris. But some of the jobs that I see advertised are so poorly written. They're asking for everything under the sun. They're asking for 5 years experience with a tool that's only been around for 3 years. No wonder people go and do this kind of stuff, right?
Junior roles with 5 years industry experience and a bachelor's degree and a master's degree and like
Why?
all of that.
Why?
I mean, I wouldn't even get put through a sift because as you know, well, both of we wouldn't, as you know, we didn't come from a conventional university route, you know, so it's I hate that, to be honest, when it asks for those things, because even like years in experience, somebody could have more experience in a year to 2 years than what somebody had in 20. It's what you do with your time.
Exactly. Anyway, that's kind of just a little tangent there. Yeah. But that, for me, is kind of, that does kind of almost drive this type of behavior. And we don't want people to feel like they have to do that. Yeah. So, that story is, I'm not criticizing that person as, directly or anything like that. They felt the need that they needed to do that. And I felt that was a sad situation, that they felt that need to have to do that, right? They shouldn't feel that need. And nobody should ever be in that position where they think they have to lie on their CV to get through the door. If people are having to do that, then that's on the organizations that are recruiting, not those individuals. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to draw a line under that one, right? So we had some interaction on LinkedIn, right?
We did.
And I just want to bring some stuff up, because a lot of what we've been talking about resonates with some of the people in the community, and they've taken time to share their thoughts, and there's some really good stuff here, and I want to pull it in. Just touch on some stuff now, but then we can pull, maybe these people would like to come on another episode and talk about their own experiences. I'm talking about you, Simon, you, Claire, you, James. So if you want to come on, I know you want to. I mean, Simon Pryor, he's got his own bloody podcast. He's like, I'm coming on your shit one. But yeah,
seasoned professional.
It's just, I feel like an imposter. But Simon commented anyway, so thank you, Simon. He said a good interview for him when hiring is one where he can unlock the person's passion, turns into conversation rather than rigid questions, kind of what we were talking about earlier. He says, I guess from the side of the interviewee, which he's going through at the moment because he's currently looking for work. So, Simon, I hope that's all going okay for you, mate. It's about being able to show who I really am and not having to try to be something I'm not to get through a process. What were we just talking about there, about the CV, right? And the 100%. CV is the first thing in the door. But it doesn't have to be nowadays. There's another way that you can build your brand even before you have to write a CV, right? So we've got our LinkedIn, we've got social, there's so many different ways we can do it. And I want to go into that whole brand building thing. Guess what, people? It's another episode. Our backlog for episodes is growing by the second. But thank you, Simon. James Wadley. So James says, I find coping mechanisms interesting. Yeah. So lots of people get incredibly anxious, like to your point earlier, Chris, like with interviews, but there are lots of tools that we can use to help stay calm, such as pressure points as an example. Really great example of this. We know a mutual friend of ours, Craig Webber from Dunelm, he let us into a little secret of his way of coping in situations where he feels a little bit under pressure. Just takes a sip of his drink, just takes a moment, takes a breath, takes a sip of his drink, just and then goes. And I think that's really great. It's like, but obviously pressure points is a good one. I use pressure points a lot, actually. I'll often just hear there's a pressure point in here. If you press, that's helps you. Bloody hurts, but it it does help relax you a little bit. But yeah, breathing, just
I
there's
do
different
breath
ways.
work. I find that helpful because you can, if you don't want to show somebody in front of you like what you're doing as well, and you want to kind of um,
Mm,
diffuse your emotions a little bit. I find like anybody can do like 2 or 3 big inhales and exhales like through your nose,
yeah,
and nobody knows you're doing it. You just incorporate that into your normal breathing, and just
yeah,
bringing in that extra bit of oxygenated air as well, like helps just clear your mind. And it is actually backed by science as well, that like
yeah,
breath work will, just a couple of breaths will significantly reduce your blood pressure and your heart rate as well. So
yeah. As long as it
it's
doesn't go in through your nose and out through your ass, not on anything. That's
yeah.
not a good place to be. Just right, so don't get that relaxed, guys. Don't be doing your yoga beforehand or anything, because that, cool. So yeah, so thank you. James does make another point. Actually, I'll pick up now. He said um, he'd be interested to hear a discussion around how to sell yourself. I find it quite difficult to talk about myself. What recommendations are there for getting your skills and personality across to the interviewer effectively? Um, I think we can do a whole episode on that, and
Definitely
you
wanting to do one on
um,
that because there's so
but
much on it.
yeah, but I think there are different ways you can do that. We've talked about ways not to do that. Obviously, don't feel like pressure to do those things. But also, as we spoke about earlier, James, it's not just on you to sell yourself. It's about the person doing the interview or the people doing the interview to give you the space to sell yourself, right? So don't again feel like it's all on you and you'll have the one that has to kind of make this thing happen. If you're not given the space, maybe you want to think twice about whether that's the right place for you anyway. That's how I look at it. But we're going to delve into this a lot more. And James, maybe you wanna come on the show and we can chat. Yeah. I'll be in touch, James. And then Claire Coates. So Claire actually gives an example of kind of like Claire, yeah, Claire. I'm so crap at doing these things. Why? Again, people just making stupid little rubbish heart things with fingers.
It's because you've got short fingers, Stu.
Anyway, Claire says, I recently went through an interview process and I was given a technical test to complete. So this is coming to what we were talking about earlier. It said to take no longer than 2 hours. Like, yeah, right. They expected me to implement a framework from scratch and incorporate Gherkin BDD and write automated tests for 8 scenarios. I mean, it took me almost 2 hours to read that, let alone do it, right? The site they gave me was very slow. We need to get some performance engineering on that then as well. See? And a single page application. After 3 to 4 days, I submitted what I had. The initial feedback I received from the recruiter was that it didn't meet their expectations and felt rushed. It certainly wasn't rushed at all. I asked her to pull me out of the process. Fair play to you, Claire, for that,
Yeah.
because that would have been a massive red flag for me, as it was for you, obviously. So she said it was a huge red flag for me that they were shutting down the process without having a conversation about what my thought process were, why I chose to complete the task the way I did, etc. The person interviewing me was not technical and relied upon her dev team to assess the technical task. So again, if you're doing technical tasks, people, don't allow them to be the only interaction you have with the people that you're interviewing,
Yeah.
because you need to tap into their thinking. You need to understand why they approach something in that way. We do it every day, right? People that we work with, you know. So, and Claire has actually said here, I guess I'd question the purpose of technical tasks. I don't mind performing technical tasks, but I think that they have to be relevant to the role, and they should be used as a means of opening up discussion. Like Simon said above, it should be open discussion whereby the interviewee can demonstrate their passion and allow for a free flowing conversation. So, these are people that have been through interviews recently and had that type of experience. And, I think anybody that's listening to this right now, or anybody that's within an organization where you're doing interviews or you're seeing interviews done in this type of way, maybe just have a word and just say, is there a better way of doing it? Have we thought about a better way of doing this, right? Because you would genuinely be missing out on amazing candidates like Claire, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we know Claire very well, so yeah, we need to look at that and think about, what are we really trying to get out of this thing?
I think Claire touched on a really important message there as well. As you go through the interview process with a company, if it doesn't feel like the right fit, don't feel you have to go through the whole process. If you feel it's not right for you, it's absolutely fine to pull out of that process as well. Like we said before, it's 50-50 relationship, and also it's about understanding your worth and your own value, and don't let anybody diminish that. So if their interview process doesn't allow you to sell yourself in the right way and get yourself across in the right way to them, then don't waste any more time. If the person isn't listening to you in the interview and they seem very disengaged, similar, don't change who you are to fit the process, because the process might be broken, and it might not necessarily get the best value from what it's intending to do. So just remember what you bring to the table, and be confident in that within yourself as well, because there is always an opportunity out there for you. It's just about finding the right fit, because sometimes going for the wrong one is more impactful to yourself in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, even if you're successful and you get through to the next round, as an example, if you don't feel as though it's right, don't feel obliged. You don't have to do it, right? And to be fair, if I was the person interviewing and somebody just went through the interview process, it might be 2 or 3 stages, and then decided, no, it's not the right fit, but you knew earlier, for me, tell me earlier, because, I want that feedback. I want to understand, why you're feeling that way as well, because, want to improve the situation. We're coming to the end of the episode, but there's one last thing that I want to bring up before we do. It's just that moment of like, how do I position this right? I'm just going to say it, right? Companies that take weeks or months to get you through their interview process, right? It's obviously be open up front and how long this potentially might take. Don't leave candidates just hanging. Keep open communication. Sometimes it's going to take, because, the stars need to align within the organization and stuff like that, right? You may have to wait for approval on something, etc., etc. I get it. That's fine. But don't leave candidates just hanging. Make sure that there's constant open communication with them, so that, they understand what's going on. Because you can lose people. If you think that you say, for example, you've got a 3-stage interview process, and between each of those interviews, you're taking 3 weeks to get back to the candidate to tell them that they're successful. If they're actively looking, the likelihood is you're going to miss out on those people, right? If they're passively looking, okay, you're probably going to be a little bit better off. But it's just something to be mindful of. I appreciate these things do take time. Look, I know from experience these things do take time, and it can be frustrating. But the thing there is to ensure that you keep open dialogue at all times. My preference is like you do all the interviews within 2 to 3 weeks and you've made your decision. All right. Just put the time in to do it and stuff like that. If it's in your control to do that. I get it if it's not and you have to go through other internal processes. I get that. But just keep the communication channels open, because the interview process, what you got to remember is the interview process is your selling point to the candidate. It's their first insight into your organization. They might have read loads of stuff on LinkedIn. They might see all the amazing posts you post about, we've got this amazing culture, we've got this, that, and the other. But their first direct interaction with you is your interview process. So you really need to make sure that if it's going to take time, they are very aware of it's going to take time, and it's not just that you're dragging your heels. That's all I say, right? And I've experienced that myself, right? To the point that when I was looking last year, I had a number of interviews, and some of them took ages to come back, and at which time I'd worked my way through and I'd got the role at Capital One, which I'm very happy I got, right? But then I got a phone call to say, you've been successful for the second round. And I'm like, yes, that's great for you, but don't need to. I'm not worried now. But that was like over 4 weeks. 4 weeks is like from a first round interview to them getting in touch to say, we'd like you to come back for a second interview. I'm sorry, my life moves a bit quicker than that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just about keeping the communication open, because if they'd have sort of got in contact and just said, it's going to take a couple of weeks, just so you're aware, but here's some feedback, initial feedback, right? Because there wasn't even any feedback. So share that feedback, keep the communication channels open, etc. That was just the last thing I really wanted to say.
And just one last thing from me as well, and just to extend upon what you just said, like when we're talking about not wasting people's time, same applies in the interview for me. And that's kind of one of the feelings I've got about what a bad interview might look like. Like if somebody has given up their time to come to an interview, please, as the person conducting the interview or being part of the interview panel, stay engaged in the conversation. If it's for 45 minutes or an hour, like I know we live in the whole TikTok, Instagram era, and everybody's attention diminishes after like 2 minutes and we're on to the next video. Please don't be that person. They're giving up a lot to be there. So respect the person's time, do the human thing and interact with them throughout. Please keep your camera on. Don't switch it off. Don't be typing away and answering messages that you're getting through work or being on your phone. Stay actively engaged. We can only, especially on a Zoom or a Teams call or whatever platform you may use, when you're doing it in a hybrid or remote way, you lose some of the factors that somebody might engage with, like body language. We only see like here, shoulders up. Sometimes if you want to express yourself, remember, just lift your hands up. They can get a lot more from it. Move around a little bit. Just don't disengage. And that would be like kind of where I would end myself on that point, really, is to just give the attention where it's due,
Yeah, absolutely. And the flip is that, right? Make sure if you are being interviewed, you come prepared and you come with energy, and
100%.
because obviously the people doing the interview are giving up a lot of time as well. And guess what? You might be the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh person they've interviewed that day. Who knows, right? So
and you're taking somebody else's place as well, right?
Exactly, right? So make sure you come prepared, but make sure you bring some energy so that you're the one that they remember.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. So, this has been great. I've really enjoyed this, but we were right at the start, weren't we? There's so much we need to unpack, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to do some bite-size episodes all around this, the interview process, etc., etc. If anybody would like to join us, we're looking at probably recording like 20-minute episodes that we'll drop, for different topics within this bigger topic. Just let us know if you've been through if you've actively been looking for a role, you've been through interviews recently. Love to sort of chat to you and get an idea of what your experience has been like, good or bad, right? Don't need to name names or anything like that, but just understand the experiences that people are, receiving out there. Simon, James, Claire will obviously, you're welcome on to chat more about the areas that you shared on LinkedIn. But yeah, we'll put a post out anyway off the back of this to see what, if anybody wants to join us. But either way, we're going to do it, right? So, we're going to do it. I mean, me and Chris almost fell out at the start of the show because of the sausage and mash and sausage and chips thing. So, maybe a third person might just help bring our friendship back to life a little bit. I don't know.
Well, at least we agreed on gravy stew, so we're still hanging in
Yeah.
there.
No, that is true. Cool. So let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up there, because else we'll keep going all night. But this has been a lot of fun, as always. Thank you, Chris, for your great insights and your wisdom and your calmness in the moment. It's always a
pleasure.
right
back to you, Stu.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure being in your company, and there's always something to learn from our conversations, right? We're trying to put information out there, but we equally learn as much just talking through that as well. So
we do, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just one other thing, Chris didn't say this at the start, but Chris did a really great podcast, Coach's Corner podcast. It's out there. Chris was amazing. So you need to go and listen to it. Go and find it off the back of this one. Do you know what? We'll link it. We'll put it in the link. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for all your support, as always. Really appreciate it. Let's keep trucking. Get those numbers up. Join us next time on another episode of Quality Talks podcast. Good night and take care.
Thanks, everyone.